Well, over the last 10 years or so, I've come across many programs that promise to do what Sample Scout is able to do. I work with a lot of samples. Samples are the building blocks of a lot of my music. And I've always wanted a quick little program that can let me audition samples in a lightning speed and quickly pick out the samples I want for any given project. This is Sample Scout. Today we're going to check out how this little program helped me browse through a gazillion samples, picking out the ones I wanted to import into my old school sampler. And here we are inside Sample Scout. The basic idea here is to browse through samples to the left and drag them over into the right, where we can build up sets of samples. Now, the first time you start up Sample Scout, you have to scan a designated area, folder, hard drive, or whatever, the place you have your samples on your computer. If you buy new sample packs later on, you can always rescan this to get this into Sample Scout as well. How long this scanning process will take will of course depend on how many samples you have in that area you're scanning. So now Sample Scout has scanned my folder sounds and all the subfolders therein, and everything is now ready for assembling into sets in Sample Scout. So let's assemble some sounds from old drum machines into a set in Sample Scout here. By pressing space, you can audition a clip, or you can do this automatic by setting this to on. And now we can just browse through the different samples and it will play automatically. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there are keyboard shortcuts, and I especially like that they've used the WASD buttons to navigate quickly through folders, etc. Now, if you want to take a sample and drag it out and start making a set, you just click and drag, and there it is in your set, your first sample. Let's do another one as well. So we have a kick and a snare in our first set here, which I can of course rename. Let's call this my great drum set. Now below the waveform of each sample that you audition, you can see the information about the sample itself, like the bitrate and the frequency and the pitch and BPMs if it's a loop, etc, etc. This will come in handy later as I'm auditioning sounds for import into hardware samplers. So let me continue to browse through different folders here and finding sounds for this set. Instead of dragging samples over with the mouse, I can just click on a sample in the browser to the left and press E on the keyboard. I will also add that sample to the set I'm working on at the moment. So let's find a loop here. I have some great loops under my Electro Tools folder here. Let's find a simple drum loop here and use that as an example for another thing I want to show you. So here we have a loop. Let's drag that in, and you can see it detects the BPMs of that loop. It's 130. You can of course always remove a sample from your set. It doesn't delete the sample itself from the computer, of course, but you can remove it from the set. And not only that, you can also restore it back onto your set if you regret removing it from your set. It's a nice touch as well. And here's another cool feature which is essential to me in many ways. Here's that loop we added earlier. If I now press C on the keyboard, I bring up the editor. And now I can chop up and isolate parts of this sample if I want to, by clicking and dragging. So here I'm isolating that first clap of that loop, and I can just adjust this clip until I have it isolated. And now I can cut that clip into my active set as a new sample by clicking this button here. And now I have another sample in my set, which is only this. The old sample with the entire loop is of course still active in the set. And I can also manipulate the fade-ins and fade-outs of that clip if I want to, again by clicking and dragging. And I can even adjust the curve a little bit for a much smoother attack or release if I want to. And then I can just update the clip in the set. Let's drag one more sample into our set here. I want a bass sound. Let's do this one from the Matrix 12. And let's check that out. Some info about that one. It detects the pitch as C2, which is correct. Okay, so now we have a set of samples which I want to export out into a format that can be read by my old sampler. I cannot transfer sounds from Sample Scout into old samplers. That's outside the scope of what Sample Scout is supposed to do. But I can prep these samples into a format that will be read by my old sampler. And to do that, I export my set. I can export it to a designation of my choosing. I've already set up a folder called exports for that, so that's fine. And under the options, I can now set different parameters for this export. Now, even if my Akai S1000 is a stereo sampler, I do want to convert all of these samples in this set to mono, so I will definitely click that option. I also want to limit the output slightly, so I'll click that option as well. Minus 0.3 dBs are okay. I can also change the sample rate of the exported set. I'll leave it at 44.1 kilohertz. That's fine. I can also change the bit depth if I want to, but 16 is okay for this Akai S1000. And under extras here, I'm not sure if this is important or not, but let's click that legacy wave 16-bit PCM as well. I know that my Akai S1000 is a 16-bit PCM sampler, but if this checkbox is necessary or not for this to work on the S1000, I don't know yet. We'll find out when we transfer these sounds over to the S1000. And that's about it. If I use these options on a regular basis, I can save this as a preset on its own. But for now, let's just press export and see how it goes. And it seemed to have gone well. Let's open the folder and see what we have in here. And here they are in my exports folder, my great drum set with all these exported samples. Now let's see if we can transfer one of these over to the S1000. So let's see if this works. We're gonna transfer one of these exported samples out from my old PC to this Akai S1000. The prepping of the S1000 is really simple. You don't have to do anything except turn it on and double check that on the MIDI page you have a standard set for sample protocol. That's really all you have to do. Then we move on to Sample Wrench, a trusty old sample dump program on the PC. I pick out the file and here's the exported drum set from what we recently saw. And here I have that chopped up sample from the loop. Let's open that up and that's the sample. And all I have to do is pick out the MIDI interface I'm using on this old PC, MIDI in and MIDI out. I have, of course, hooked this up to the Akai S1000's MIDI in and out as well. So there's a handshaking going on here. So I just press OK and the sample is now being sent to the Akai S1000, as you can see, receiving MIDI, exclusive data. And it takes a while. MIDI sample dump old school is not a fast process by any means, but this was a short sample and it's done. So let's check it out if we can play it. So the Sample Scout export worked perfectly. Now, if you're using a DAW like Ableton Live, Reaper, Cubase or whatever, and you're using drum racks or drum samples inside that DAW, here's another cool thing you can do. Just mark whatever samples in a set you want to use. And let's get rid of that long loop there and use the clipped loop instead. And now if I minimize the Sample Scout window, I can now drag these straight out of Sample Scout and into my DAW of choice and the drum sampler I have set up there. Just drag those right onto the pads. And voila, with names and everything, all the samples from my set in Sample Scout is now in my DAW in this drum sampler, and I can play these from my MIDI keyboard or with the mouse, of course. To me, the asking price is a no-brainer. I'll leave a link for you in the video description if you want to check it out. And as always, I'm Espen Kraft. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.